Chapter Title 5. Desperate Battle on Zarnox. As the human conscripts prepared for the imminent battle on Zarnox, a sense of solemnity enveloped them. They stood in formation, for some like Nakia, the memories of their first harrowing experience with Drixarian technology still fresh in their minds. Since that moment, the helmets had become an inseparable part of their being, integrated into the bio-implants that had been forced upon them. Each conscript, including Nakia and Rook, raised their arms, their eyes fixed on the holographic screens that shimmered into existence just above their forearms. The screens, a symbol of their bondage and transformation, responded to their touch with a fluid precision. As they pressed the controls, a remarkable transformation began. From the pores of their skin, millions of fibrous strands emerged, weaving together to form the armor suits. The process was both fascinating and unnerving, a visible manifestation of how deeply the Drixarian technology had integrated into their bodies. The fibers, thin yet incredibly strong, covered them completely, forming a second skin that offered protection and also a stark reminder of their loss of autonomy. Similarly, when they activated their helmets, the same fibrous strands converged around their heads, materializing into helmets with red screens. This process, once a source of immense pain and disorientation, had become almost routine, yet it never ceased to evoke a sense of alienation within them. They were no longer just soldiers. They were extensions of the Drixarian war machine, their humanity cloaked under the guise of this advanced armor. As the helmets locked into place, their field of vision tinted by the red screens, the conscripts were mentally and physically transported into their roles as instruments of war. The transformation was complete, leaving them armored and ready for the conflict that awaited on Zarnox. In these moments, as they braced themselves for battle, Commander-Chief's briefing was brief and to the point. He spoke of the conditions on Zarnox with a dismissive air, assuring the conscripts that this mission would be as straightforward as the previous ones in the Bolok system. Another simple task in the name of Zahak, he declared, his confidence unshaken despite the growing unease among his troops. With the order given to proceed with the cleansing of the planet, large ports on the Drixarian ship opened, revealing the expanse of space outside. The conscripts, in their synchronized formation, began their march towards these ports, each step taking them closer to the unknown challenges of Zarnox. As they passed through the ports, a transport mechanism activated, seamlessly transitioning them from the ship in space to the surface of the planet below. They materialized just outside a large Zarnox settlement, the sudden shift in environment momentarily disorienting. The city they faced was unlike anything they had seen on the previous planets. It was a marvel of alien architecture, with structures that seemed to grow organically from the ground, their designs both elegant and alien. The buildings were composed of materials that shimmered with iridescent colors, reflecting the light of Zarnox's sun in mesmerizing patterns. The inhabitants of Zarnox were equally unique. They resembled terrestrial roly-polies, with hard, segmented exoskeletons that provided natural armor. When standing upright, they reached heights of 5 to 6 feet, their stature imposing yet not intimidating. Their movements were fluid, betraying a surprising agility for beings encased in such protective shells. As the conscripts observed the settlement and its inhabitants, a sense of unease filled the air. The peaceful demeanor of the Zarnoxians and the beauty of their city stood in stark contrast to the violent intentions of the Drixarian mission. The conscripts, once ordinary humans from Earth, now once again found themselves at the forefront of an invasion against a species that posed no apparent threat on a planet that had done them no harm. The reality of their situation weighed heavily on each of them as they prepared to carry out their orders. The stark difference between the Zarnoxians' peaceful existence and the violent agenda of their captors highlighted the moral dilemma they faced. Yet bound by technology and the threat of dire consequences, they had little choice but to proceed with the mission. Their encounter with the Zarnoxians unfolded in a manner that was becoming tragically familiar to the conscripts. The native beings approached the formation with an air of peaceful welcome, unaware of the grim intentions of their visitors. As they rolled up to greet the newcomers, their words, translated by the conscript's Drixarian tech, resonated with innocence and hospitality. "Hello, welcome to Zarnox. I am—" But Rook, hardened by the many battles and the weight of their grim duty, knew all too well how this encounter would end. With a sense of resignation and a heavy heart, he issued the command, "Fire!" His voice, amplified and transmitted directly into the minds of the conscripts through their implants, left no room for hesitation or doubt. The implants, sophisticated in their design, could discern the intended recipients of a communication, whether it was directed to an individual, a select group, or the entire formation. As Rook's order echoed in their minds, the conscripts opened fire on the unsuspecting Zarnoxians. The scene that unfolded was one of chaos and violence. Many of the Zarnoxians fell, struck down by the barrage of bullets. However, to the surprise of the conscripts, not all of the Zarnoxians were so easily defeated. Half of them, upon being fired upon, quickly rolled up into tight balls, their hard, segmented shells effectively deflecting the bullets. This unexpected turn of events revealed a new aspect of the Zarnoxians. Not only were they a peaceful race, but they also possessed natural defenses that made them more resilient than anticipated. The sight of these beings retreating in their protective forms offered a glimpse into their unique biology and the potential challenges they posed in combat. For the conscripts, this revelation added another layer of complexity to the battle. They were forced to adapt quickly to this new defensive tactic, all the while grappling with the moral implications of their actions. As the battle continued, Rook, Nakia, and the others were left to confront the reality that this mission, like the ones before, was stripping away pieces of their humanity, one shot at a time. As the initial shock of the Zarnoxians' unexpected defense tactics subsided, Rook, Nakia, and Stacy found a brief moment amidst the chaos to exchange words. Nakia, her face etched with concern, turned to Rook. "Have we ever encountered something like this before? I mean, an alien race protected to this extent?" Rook shook his head, his expression grim. "Not to this level. We've faced resistance, but nothing like the Zarnoxians. Their natural defenses are something else." Stacy, trying to inject a sense of resolve into the conversation, added, "We can't let it throw us off. Remember, it's them or us. We've gotten through other missions. We'll get through this one too." Nakia nodded, though her eyes betrayed her lingering doubts. The situation was far from the clear-cut scenarios they had been forced into on other planets. Rook, sensing the need to maintain focus, barked an order to the group. "Everyone, move forward! We start our assault on the settlement now. Stay alert!" As they advanced towards the Zarnoxian settlement, the conscripts quickly found themselves under attack. The Zarnoxians, utilizing their natural defenses and terrain knowledge, mounted a formidable resistance. Energy bolts and projectiles whizzed through the air, striking several conscripts. The scene turned chaotic as conscripts began falling, struck down by the well-coordinated defense of the Zarnoxians. The realization that this battle would be far more challenging than any they had faced before began to set in. The Zarnoxians, determined to protect their home, fought with a desperation and ingenuity that caught the conscripts off guard. Nakia, Rook, and Stacy moved together, trying to adapt to the rapidly evolving combat situation. The reality of facing an enemy that could not only defend themselves effectively, but also strike back with lethal force was a jarring departure from their previous encounters. Each step forward was met with resistance. Zarnoxians were defending their home with a fierce determination, presenting a formidable challenge to the conscripts. Their weaponry, unlike anything the conscripts had encountered before, was specifically designed to counteract the advanced technology of the Drixarian armor. Energy-based weapons in the hands of the Zarnoxians emitted concentrated pulses of energy that interacted catastrophically with the conscripts' suits. Upon impact, these pulses disrupted the armor systems, momentarily disabling their protective features and leaving the conscripts vulnerable to further attacks. Nakia, Rook, and Stacy found themselves struggling to maintain their bearings as each pulse hit. The disorienting effect of the weapons was frightening. It blurred their vision, scrambled their senses, and left them staggering on the battlefield. This level of disorientation made it difficult for them to mount an effective offense and left them exposed to the relentless onslaught of the Zarnoxians. All around them came the sounds of battle filling the air. The relentless firing of the conscripts' rifles mixed with the distinctive hum and crackle of the Zarnoxian energy weapons. The cries of the wounded, both human and Zarnoxian, underscored the brutality of the conflict. The ground became littered with the fallen, a grim testament to the ferocity of the fight. As the battle raged on, the conscripts were forced to adapt quickly to the new threat. However, the Zarnoxians, fighting for their home and their lives, utilized their weaponry with precision and strategic acumen. It was clear that this battle was not going to be the straightforward mission they had been led to expect. Instead, it had become a desperate struggle for survival against an enemy that was not only well-equipped, but also highly motivated to protect their world from invasion. The battle on Zarnox was unlike any the conscripts had faced before. Commander-Chief, from his command post, watched with growing apprehension as his forces suffered heavy losses. The sight of half his conscripts fallen was a stark deviation from the swift victories he was accustomed to. His usual stoic demeanor cracked under the pressure of an unexpected challenge, as the potential for defeat became a tangible reality, as he watched from a floating platform far behind the front line. On the battlefield, Nakia, Rook, and Stacy were entrenched in the midst of chaos. The bond among them, forged through shared struggles, proved to be their greatest strength. Amid the roughness of war, they communicated in short, urgent bursts. "We're losing too many!" Nakia yelled, her voice barely audible over the sounds of combat, though transmitted clearly to others through the tech. Stacy, interrupting, added with alarm, "Their weapons, they're not just stunning us. They're climbing onto those that have been stunned, and seconds later, there's nothing left but bones in a cracked open suit." Rook, his voice laced with urgency, responded, "We need a new strategy. We can't just keep pushing forward. Their weapons are breaching our defenses." The direness of their situation intensified when Stacy was hit by one of the Zarnoxian energy pulses. The injury was severe, and under usual circumstances of their missions, such a wound would have meant a one-way trip to vacation, a morbid euphemism the conscripts used for death. The possibility of losing Stacy in such a manner as Jackson and many others brought a new wave of desperation to Rook and Nakia. Rook's determination to reach Stacy was abruptly halted when a Zarnoxian weapon struck him. The energy pulse scrambled his helmet screen, blinding him and bringing him to his knees. Disoriented and vulnerable, he was saved by the timely intervention of other conscripts who rushed to his aid. Despite his efforts, his system was still resetting from the energy pulse, leaving him unable to reach Stacy in her time of need. Nakia, witnessing the perilous situation, acted swiftly. Seeing a Zarnoxian advancing to devour Stacy, she sprinted towards the threat, her rifle firing continuously. The bullets, however, were ineffective, bouncing off the creature's rounded armored shell. As the Zarnoxian loomed over Stacy, Nakia desperately wished for a knife. To her astonishment, the fibers of her suit responded, materializing a black knife in her hand. The realization of this newfound ability filled her with a surge of determination. With the Zarnoxian inches away from Stacy, who was screaming in terror, Nakia used her momentum to engage the creature directly. She grasped the underside of its shell-like armor, and with a powerful heave, flipped herself over it, pulling the Zarnoxian off Stacy and exposing its vulnerable underside. Without hesitation, Nakia drove the knife repeatedly into the soft flesh, her actions swift and decisive. The Zarnoxian writhed and then lay still, its threat neutralized. As Nakia stood, panting from the exertion and adrenaline, she noticed the familiar blue light of the transport device descending to retrieve Stacy. It was the dreaded signal of vacation, a fate that had meant certain death. Nakia's heart sank as she realized that while she had saved Stacy from the immediate danger, she couldn't save her from their cruel overlords. However, as the transport beam began to lift Stacy, something unprecedented happened. It froze, leaving Stacy suspended in midair, her feet just above the ground. Nakia and Rook watched in stunned silence, their amazement shared by those around them. The usual, inexorable process of the transport beam had been interrupted, an occurrence they had never witnessed before. This unexpected turn of events brought a momentary pause to the chaos around them, a brief respite filled with questions and a flicker of hope. Perhaps for the first time since their abduction, there was a sign that their fate was not entirely sealed, that there might be more to their existence than being mere pawns in Zahak's cruel game. For Nakia, Rook, and the others, this anomaly in the midst of battle was a glimmer of something they hadn't dared to feel in a long time, the possibility of change. Commander-Chief's actions were driven by desperation as he watched his forces dwindling rapidly on the battlefield of Zarnox. The fear of losing the battle and facing Zahak's wrath pushed him to take an unprecedented step. In a move that shocked both his troops and himself, he activated the healing implants within the conscripts, a capability that had remained dormant and unknown to them until this critical juncture. As the recall transport gently lowered Stacy back to the ground, the conscripts witnessed something miraculous. Her wounds began to heal rapidly, the advanced technology of the implants knitting her flesh back together, erasing the marks of battle as if they had never been. Within moments, she stood fully restored, ready to rejoin the fight. The sight of her miraculous recovery rippled through the ranks, stirring a mix of emotions. Rook, witnessing Stacy's healing, was overwhelmed by a surge of anger and frustration. "They had this technology all along?" he exclaimed, his voice tinged with bitterness. "How many lives could have been saved? Jackson and all the others we've lost." His words trailed off, lost in the din of the ongoing battle. Nakia, recognizing the dangerous path Rook's thoughts were taking, intervened. "Rook, we need to stay focused. We can't change what's happened, but we can make it through this," she urged, her voice a beacon of resolve in the chaos. Stacy, rejuvenated and back in the fight, moved with a determination fueled by her narrow escape from death. However, Rook was haunted by the revelation of the healing technology and the implications of such a secret. His mind raced with questions and doubts. What else are they hiding from us? He wondered, his trust in their captors eroding further.